If we continue talking about circles, we have a idea about arc addition, and this is a very common sense approach, and it's very much our parts to whole idea that we've been dealing with throughout the course. If we could add two adjacent angles to make the larger angle, of course we can add two adjacent arcs to make the larger. And that is just a common sense idea that we've been dealing with angles and segments throughout the course. So we talk about the arc measure of A to C. We have 25 A to B, and B to C is 90. And so if we have 25 plus 90, we end up at 115. If we want to calculate the measure of A to E, initially it doesn't look like we have enough information. But this whole arc here is 180 because that's a semicircle. And so if we subtract 180 minus the 115 of the angle of the arc AC, we are left with 65 for this arc right here. If we look at the major arc of start at A, go through E, stop at C, it again looks like we don't have enough information. But this is a semicircle, so it's 180 plus this 65 portion we just found, and that major arc then becomes 245. Now, arc length is another way to measure the length of an arc. We've talked about arc measure, which is in degrees. It's like another unit of measure. And when we talk about arc length, we're talking about what portion of the circumference is the arc. And so we're going to talk about it in terms of units versus degrees. And if you think about the length of an arc, all the way around the circle is the circumference, and if I take this part of it, that would be some fractional portion of the entire circumference. So we could talk about the part, the arc, compared to the whole thing, and our unit of measure is the circumference, which is pi times diameter. So if we fill in this part over whole a little bit more, and we connect it to our idea of central angle, we're talking about the measure of the arc divided by 360, because that gives us what fraction is this little chunk, times circumference. And that's how we figure out the arc length. So in this example, find the arc length of CD. The portion is 30 over 360 times my radius is 6, so my diameter is 12. My circumference is pi times 12. If we're multiplying fractions, we put them over 1. So let's go ahead and just simplify our fraction first. 30 over 360 has a common factor of 10, so I can cancel that. 3 and 36 have a common factor of 3, and when I divide that out, it cancels down to 1 over 12. I have a 12 in both the numerator and denominator, and so my arc length is pi units. And again, it's very easy and totally appropriate to leave it as an exact answer. If we look at the arc length of WZ, our arc is 46 degrees, so my portion is 46 over 360. My diameter is 30, and then I can work out the math. Again, I'm going to go ahead and cancel 30 and 360, have a common factor, and cancel to leave 12 in the denominator. So I have 46 pi over 12. 46 and pi at minimum have a common factor of 2, so that leaves 23 and 6. 23 and 6 don't have any common factors, so my exact arc length is 23 pi over 6 units. If you go to your calculator and work that out, you get approximately 12.04 units. Now in this next example, we're actually talking about this minor arc right here. All the way around is 360, so that leaves this arc to be 40. So the portion I'm talking about is the 40-degree portion. But here, I'm given arc length and I want to find radius. So arc length would be equal to the measure of the angle over 360 times the circumference. So if I write down my formula and fill in what I know, I can usually solve for what I don't. So arc length is given, 58.25, is equal to the measure of my arc, 40, over its part, and I ultimately am left with the variable d, which I know is related to radius. Now I could multiply both sides by 360 and divide by 40, but if I go ahead and cancel these to be 1/9, it makes my math a little easier down the line. So first thing I'm going to do is we undo division by 9 by multiplying by 9. And so I have 524.25 is equal to pi times diameter. If I divide both sides by pi, remember use the pi key, I have 166.9 is equal to diameter. I need radius. Radius is a matter of dividing by 2, and my radius becomes 83.4 units. Go ahead and give the quiz practice problems a try and tune in for part 3.